Hello and welcome to another episode of the FemiNinja Project. And thank you so much for tuning in. I have another fantastic guest with me today. Her name is Christine McCarron. She is a real estate broker, investor, coach, author, speaker, mentor, and owner of the Beehive Coworking Community. She reinvented herself at the tender young age of 50, creating a life for herself of financial independence, financial freedom, and a renewed zest for life. She now helps women in the second half of life regain their own passion for living. Christine is also the host of the Women Creating Wealth podcast and the Get Your Fill podcast. Her book is titled Empower Your Inner Millionaire. Christine, thank you so much for being here and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. I'm excited to be here and talking to you.
Oh, I'm more excited than you could possibly know. It's been a while. I know we tried connecting a while back and we finally made it happen. So that's very exciting.
Yes, it is.
So I love your story about reinventing yourself at the tender young age of 50. And I keep saying that because I remember what it was like when I turned 50. It was a while back, but I was convinced that 50 was going to be my best decade ever. And I was right until I got to my 60s. And now it's like my 60s are the best decade ever. So it's really making me look forward to 70, which I'm sure a lot of people don't say that.
That's for sure. That's for sure. Well, because you've obviously done it right? You were intentional. You thought about what you wanted that year to look like, and you didn't listen to society telling you like, oh, your eyesight's going to fail and you won't be able to drive and everything's going to sag and your life is over. And you're like, get a grip.
Okay. And now I swear I hear a choir of angels singing because that is exactly what I did. And it was almost like for the first time in my life, I didn't listen to anybody else telling me what my life was going to be like or what it should be like or what I could and could not do. And it was just like, okay, let's just see what happens because I'm going to take the bull by the horns and I'm running with this. So I have got to ask, is that what you did as well?
Well, when 50 came along, I was not as wise as you. I just sort of freaked out and was like, "Holy crap, how am I 50? Oh, I haven't done anything. I haven't accomplished anything. And now it's too late, right? It's
Oh,
just too late for me to have a rewarding life, to mean it, to do anything, anything substantial with my life." And I bought into that until I went to my aunt's 100th birthday party and sort of got a little perspective.
mhm. I would love to hear a little bit more about, was it Aunt Gert?
Yes, it was. Aunt Gert, she was really a force of nature.
It also sounds like she was a pioneer in the sense of, girl power.
She was. I mean, she outlived two husbands. She worked outside the home. I think the whole time that she was, for her whole career, she worked outside the home in with numbers, right? So women didn't used to know how to do anything with numbers, but she worked for a city as their town clerk, I think. Or actually, that's terrible. I have to go back and listen to one of my things that I recorded of her. But yeah, so she worked for the city doing accounting type stuff
Wow.
for her whole life. She was balancing her own checkbook right up until she died at 105. So
Wow. I had to latch on to what you said at a time when women didn't know how to deal with numbers. And I'm using my air quotes there, of course. But I remember even, as growing up and going to school, I have four sisters. So, very lot of girl energy in that house.
yeah,
But, it was kind of like, oh, well, girls can't do math. And hey, guess what? I couldn't do math because the bar was set pretty low already. So why would I even try? And it
right.
wasn't until I was in my mid 30s and I went back to school. I was taking some courses, doing my prerequisites to try and get into physical therapy school, that it was like, oh no, I'm going to have to take physics. And this is the real physics, not the stuff I took in undergrad. And oh my goodness, there's math involved. And I almost quit because I knew I couldn't do math. And then I had finally a long talk with myself and I said, you know what? You can just take it slow, go into a remedial math class at the community college, mathematics for idiots and blah, blah, blah. So I did. And the funniest thing, Chris, was that when I did that, I found out that I loved it. I mean, math is just like gymnastics with numbers.
Yeah,
And I ended up tutoring some of my classmates, and I was the one who was expecting to hire a tutor. It was just crazy. So it's really interesting the expectations that other people put on us and the limitations that we have the tendency to believe.
exactly. And it's just sad, but I mean, when you're told that from the time that you're basically born, why would you question it? It's a
Right.
fact. Women just don't do math. Oh, okay. Luckily, my
So,
Aunt Gert did not believe that, so she was like, "I'm
well, you
doing it."
had a you had a great role model for that. So
Yeah.
what happened when you turned 50? Of course, like you said, you had a bit of a, reality check and, oh my God, I haven't done anything. And then what was it? What was the catalyst that made you say, wait a minute, I'm going to turn this ship around?
It was literally walking into my aunt's 100th birthday party and seeing her there, sitting at the table with her tiara and her sash. That's his 100th birthday. Healthy and smart and funny and fit and understanding. Like everybody who came in, she knows them by name. She knows their kids, who they're married to. And like, I don't know those things. My dad was one of 10. So there are hundreds of relatives running around, most of whom I couldn't pick out of a lineup. And I mean, obviously I never made the effort. I shouldn't say that it would be impossible for me to do that, but she knew everyone's anniversary and birthday and, sitting there just like, as people came in, oh, that's so and so, and sitting next to her 95-year-old sister saying, and they're comparing like, oh yeah, whatever.
Wow.
Like they both knew everyone's birthday and all the pertinent information about them, their statistics. And I just looked at her and I thought, oh my, if this is what 100 looks like, I'm not out of time, right? I have 50 more years, but that's not an unlimited amount of time. So really, I should get going. And I just got this new burst of energy. And literally, it was like the dam that had been holding me back broke. And I just went, flushing down the
Hmm.
down the canyon.
I love the fact that you use some of the words that these are some of my favorite words. She was healthy, she was vibrant, and she was fit. And we typically do not think of those three words that go hand in hand with, hey, celebrating a 100th birthday. And I think a lot of that is, once again, going back to what society, the medical profession, the media, even people who are close to us might be telling us about and I hate using this word, but the aging process, let's just, debunk that as getting older and what that looks like, especially, for women who are bound and determined to say, the shoe doesn't fit. I'm just not going to wear it.
Yeah. Yeah. Can I tell you a funny story about her that sort of speaks to the mindset and like this whole idea of not buying into what society tells you? When when Aunt Gert was 101, she went through chemotherapy for her or radiation or whatever because she had skin cancer on her forehead.
Mhm.
And the family was in an uproar, right? They thought the doctors were taking advantage of her and like, oh, what are they trying to do? She's 101 for God's sake, blah, blah, blah. And so I asked her, I said, Aunt Gert, why are you putting yourself through this, unpleasant treatment? And she lifted up her bangs and she said, it's ugly. She said, and it's itchy. And I just thought, there it is right there. No one else, the family's thinking, oh, she's going to die any minute. Why the hell should she do chemotherapy? And in fact, she was not of that mindset. She thought,
Mm.
it's not attractive. It's not comfortable. I don't want it. There's a treatment. I'm taking it. And that's what she did.
I love Aunt Gert. I think she is amazing. And, you're going to die anyway. Someday, you
Yeah,
might as well go looking good. You don't want that big old thing on your forehead.
exactly. Exactly.
That is
And
so funny.
her attitude, right? If she had the same mindset as my family, as the rest of the family, she would never have lived to be 105.
Okay, so what's the rest of the family mindset like? Just out of curiosity.
Well, certainly the family thought about Gert was like, she's going to drop any minute. Why should she be putting herself through this unpleasantness and
Wow.
wasting money and blah, 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 because people just don't live that long, right? And she is the longest living member of our family.
Mhm.
She outlived her two daughters. Yeah, and two
Wow.
husbands.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that's really an interesting point because going through the grief of losing one husband, let alone two husbands, is really significant. That's bad enough. You put on the fact that she lost two of her children,
Yeah.
but yet at that birthday party, she was healthy, she was happy, she was vibrant, she was fit. Was there anything that you could, watching her go through these losses of how she handled it that we could learn from?
I think she just accepted these things. She had lived through so much, right? She was
Mm.
actually a young person during the Spanish flu epidemic. So
Oh.
yeah, when you think about things coming full circle, she did pass before COVID, but it would have just been like no big deal. She's like, well, and I said, well, how did you deal with it? Well, we didn't feel good, but we just kept on going. And that was her thing. They lived on a farm. So she had that like, just keep plowing forward. And that was sort of her mantra
Mhm.
that, yeah, well, that happened. Let's move on. And that's how she handled, I think, all of her setbacks.
Mhm.
What are my options? What can I do? Okay, I'll pick this and let's keep moving. Just
Mhm.
move on.
Well, like you said, just living on a farm
Mm,
would have a lot to do with that because there were no days off really if you're
exactly.
working a farm, living on a farm, and yeah, it's not like I think I'm just going to take a sick day because I feel like it, or
Yeah,
I heard something hurtful. Yeah, it's you
right,
just
exactly.
shake
There's
it
none
off
of
and
that.
keep on going, right. Okay, so now here you are, you're 50, you've got this incredible epiphany, this mental head smacking moment. You're on your way, yeah, right, to the baseball bat sometimes, and you're on your way to creating this incredible life for yourself. I'm kind of guessing that it wasn't easy. And I'm also wondering if there were people around you maybe who were trying to discourage you from doing that. You're too old, you don't know what you're doing, you can't do math, any of that. What was that like?
There always are people like that. Whenever you want to step out of your little box that you or someone else has put you in, there are always
Mhm,
people who are going to feel uncomfortable
mhm,
with the changes that you're making,
mhm,
whether it's because they don't know how they're going to fit into your new life or because
mhm,
you're maybe making them feel a little uncomfortable that they're not
mhm,
doing more or whatever. And
mhm,
and sure. And to be honest, one of the ways that I got around that is that I didn't tell people what I was doing until it was done. So right, not those people,
yeah,
the people
yeah,
who would be against it. I just said, oh, by the way, I just bought this house. Oh,
uh-huh,
by the way, I'm buying this other house and fixing it up and doing this stuff and that stuff. And they could deal with their nervousness in their own time,
mhm,
but
mhm,
there was no longer an opportunity for them to put their bad juju onto me.
mhm. So basically you are also a ninja, but you don't know it yet.
I guess so.
Yeah, very sneaky moves. I really love
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
Now, what was one of the first things you focused on?
My living situation.
Mm,
I was living like a college student. I was living in a house that someone else owned. There were two couples and two singles also living in the same house. Now, I did have my own bathroom, which was the saving grace. But really, I mean, I basically lived in a bedroom.
oh,
At any given time, if I want to go out and, make a piece of toast, there could be, six other people or a whole party going on in the kitchen at that time. And so I said, you know what? Grown-ups don't live like this. And at 50, you have to admit you're a grown-up. So
yes.
let's get yourself someplace to live. And so I started looking for a property that I felt I could afford
Mhm,
because while I was living there, I was managing to, I mean, that was the first thing, like get my credit score up, get some
mhm,
savings, and then transition into a property that I could afford. And it's so interesting, as I know you know this, Cheryl, that once you make up your mind that you're doing something, the resources just come out of the woodwork.
mhm,
And I
mhm,
was talking with a friend of mine who doesn't live locally, but she said, I was thinking, I'd love to do a real estate investment with you. What do you think? And so I found this property and she was going to get the mortgage and, she was going to be the co-signer on the loan.
mhm,
And
mhm,
then, we were going to work on the project together and all that. And it just all just fell into place. You know,
Wow.
I mean, it's a long story. I won't go into too many details, but I did find a super place that was perfect for me. And it ended up that the bank ended up fixing some of the stuff I would have had to fix. And it was just like, it worked out so fantastically. And then, you know, the rest is kind of history because that's what just kept happening. Resources just kept falling together. People
Mhm.
kept coming up to me and saying, "Oh, would you like to do? I'd love to put some money towards a real estate investment with you, and I'd love to do this." And I'd like, so yeah, okay, right. And there was just it was always there,
Mhm.
okay, but I wasn't looking for it. I did not have the right mindset to attract those resources. And then all of a sudden, until I did, right? Then I did, and there they were. Oh, hi.
Okay, so when people were approaching you, did you have your real estate license at the time, or was this just when you were starting to build your own life back?
I did already have my real estate license. I was mainly at that time doing rentals. So, you know,
Okay.
driving around with college students to places that were not very clean or nice.
This is super
But I'd
fun.
started to do a few sales.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
now I really want to highlight too what you had said about there, you started saving some money and putting some money aside. That is a real challenge at any age, especially, at the age of 50 when you really haven't had a nest egg. And there's a lot of people who might be listening to this right now going, wow, how would I do that? How would I start saving money? I mean, I understand there are ways, and we've been in this situation even recently because we had two major car repairs, but I know, yeah, it was really, really a whole lot of fun. But hey, they both drive beautifully now. It's almost like we have two, Mercedes. But so, how do you go about? Because I think people, when they think about saving money, they think of like the big picture of trying to, like put $1,000 away at a month or whatever. They don't understand that the little bits really add up.
Well, I became very systematic about it because it wasn't just that I didn't have savings. I also had debt. I had credit card debt.
Mm.
And so I was in no condition to be buying places on my own at that point. And so I just said, okay, I need to attack this problem. So I made a spreadsheet. I put down how much I owed on each card, what the interest rates were, what the amounts were, whatever, and just started picking away one at a time. And I know that the Dave Ramsey method, you take the smallest ones first. And for me, and I understand the thought process of that, but I
Mhm.
really enjoyed seeing the numbers go down on the higher interest cards first. I felt like I was the bigger bang for my buck. And because
Right.
in real estate, you do get some, lump sums as opposed to a wage, it helps you to put like you plop some significant, I can take $1,000 and put it on a card where a
Mhm.
person who's got a traditional job might not be able to do that. So
Mhm.
but yeah, I just watched all those and then things started to happen like magical things. So this, the first thing I did actually was I wrote a letter to all of the credit card companies and I said, listen, I'm going to pay you, just chill out. But in the meantime, just don't bother me. Right. So I just don't bother me while I'm doing this. I'm gonna get this thing worked out, but I don't need to get daily phone calls telling me that, I owe money and stuff. So
Mhm.
but one card company kept calling me and I was just like, "Oh, man." And I mentioned it to a friend of mine who happened to be an attorney, and he said, "Oh, that's illegal. They can't call you once you tell them not to." And so he went after them, and they gave me like $5,000 because it was so funny. Like, that's the kind of magical stuff that starts to happen once you get some momentum going. Yeah, there were those sorts of things that just sort of like, "Oh, really? Oh, and I just got that. Oh, really?" Another one I had called, I called them and said, "Okay, what can we work out?" Actually, it was before I sent the note. They called and she said, "Well, what can you pay?" And I said, she said, "Do you think you can afford to pay like 150 a month?" And I said, "Okay, fine." And so she sent a note. They sent a letter that
Mhm.
said that I agreed to pay $150 a month for 6 months. And And then at the end, like basically the letter basically read that at the end of that, that it would be that I'd be all done. But what it should have said is that then at the end of that, we'll renegotiate and figure out what to do next.
Mhm.
But they miswrote it. And so at the end of it, it was all done. So I went back to my friend and I said, uh, I've got this letter and now they want more money. He's like, oh no. So he went back to them and that ended up getting $16,000 written off that card. Yeah. I mean, that's magic. Cheryl, that is nothing if not magic, right?
Wow. Okay. So I think I've been speechless maybe 3 times in my life. Now it's up to 4. That is incredible. But that's another really important message, I think, to send to the listeners. Be very careful when you do check everything, all of the communications that you get from either the creditors or the credit card companies or whomever, and choose your friends wisely.
For sure. Well, you need people on your side for sure. And
Mhm.
that is listening, accepting help is a big lesson that it took me 50 years to learn,
Yeah, and asking for help is even harder.
for sure.
Mhm. Okay, so now you've got your debt cleared away, you got your real estate company going. Tell us about the Beehive brokerage.
Yeah, well, this is I'm very articulate. The Toastmasters are rolling over in their seats right now saying, "You've just said 4 words and none of them were a word." Okay.
I won't tell.
Okay, thank you.
It's our little secret.
When I several real estate investments later, I was living in a house that it was a single family. I had turned it into a 2-family and I was almost finished with it. I literally had hung up the phone with a friend where I said to her, I only have to paint 2 more doors and then this property is finished. An hour and a half later, my phone rings and someone said, "Hi, I'd like to buy your property. Would you consider selling it?" And I was like, "Are you kidding me right now?" So we met. The property was worth more to them than it would have been to another buyer because they actually
Mhm.
needed my backyard because it adjoined a property they were buying.
Oh.
So I gave them a number that I felt was going to make me very happy if they accepted it, and they
Uh-huh.
did. So I said to myself, well, if you say yes to this thing, what are you going to do with the money? What are you going to
Mhm.
what else are you going to do? And I felt like, because this was only 2 years ago, and I didn't feel like it was a good time to invest in residential as much as it was to invest in commercial.
Okay.
So I started looking for commercial property and I found this place, and that became the Beehive Coworking Community. And this was about an hour from where I used to work at Remax. And I said, well, I'm obviously not going to commute to Remax. And since I'm out here and I want to
Mhm.
focus a lot of my attention on the co-working space, I'll just start my own brokerage, and that's Beehive
Mhm.
Brokerage, just
Mhm.
for branding, just keep it consistent, call everything
Mhm.
Beehive.
So is that the same as the co-working community?
Yeah, the co-working community is an actual, it's a shared office space where people can
Okay.
come in. I mean, it's where I also have my office, but other people, it's like house hacking for commercial, because
Mhm.
my office is here and I'm also sharing the space with
Right. Okay.
lots of other people who rent offices and
Mhm.
chairs and desks and all
Mhm.
that. So
And now what prompted you or what made you decide it was time to write a book? And I mean, who makes that decision? Writing books isn't easy. It's not always fun.
what's interesting? This is the universe in action again. I mean, there's just no other explanation, because I've always wanted to write a fiction book. I've always wanted to write like a crime drama, murder mystery, because yeah, right. So I went to this book writing, like, expo thing where they help you write books. And was talking to the guy and, about the book. And he said, if you want to make money from your book, you should write about something, that has to do with your business. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, what do you do? I said, I'm a real estate agent. He says, oh, well, you should write about that. And I thought, oh, really? I'm like, where's the drama? Where's the suspense?
It's real estate. That is
Yeah,
drama.
exactly. Not yeah. It actually is exciting to do. I don't know about to
Yeah.
read about and write about. But yeah, and so I said, oh, okay. And that's one thing led to another. And here's the result. We have the book here.
Ooh, straighten it out. Let me see. Oh, that is really, I love that
Oops, got
cover.
the light
So
on
this is
there.
for the people who are watching on YouTube so they can
This is
see.
my favorite. Yeah, it's a gold house sitting on a pile of money.
Yeah, I didn't see the pile of money at first, and that's when my jaw dropped. It was like, ooh.
Yeah, it's kind
And
of fun.
now, when did the book get published?
It actually got published right before COVID, the end of
Oh,
2019.
okay. Oh, well,
Perfect timing. Yeah,
congratulations.
so
See,
I have yet to do a book launch.
well, timing is everything. So
Yeah.
now, is it about making money in real estate?
Yeah, it talks you through from you getting your budget together, right? Getting your finances
Mhm,
together, how to raise your credit score, and then setting goals for what you actually want the proper for
mhm,
you. Because there
mhm,
are a lot of different ways to invest in real estate. So that's another thing we talk about, different ways to
mhm,
invest, the different categories or,
mhm,
like land, commercial, residential,
mhm,
industrial, those sorts of things. And then things like the, phrases that get thrown around. What's the
mhm,
NOI? What's the so those sorts of things as well. Like what,
mhm,
what am I gonna, what's my whatever. Now I'm having a mental block. I can't even think of any of the words, but
mhm,
the the different things that you would want to understand if you're going to
mhm,
sit at the big boy table, right? If
mhm,
negotiating for yourself, if you're going to be not taken advantage of by
mhm,
contractors, because there's a section about that, like all the different people who could be on your team who might
mhm,
maybe want to condescend to you or who might want
mhm,
to not give you the best deal or whatever that gives you hopefully the language to take with you to that conversation so that
mhm,
you know what you're talking about, or
mhm,
at least you
mhm.
sound like you know what you're talking about. And you know
And so even though you haven't had a book launch, uh, I'm guessing the book is doing pretty well.
yeah, it's doing well, and it's a great resource for me to give my
Mhm,
clients when I start working with them. When I'm coaching people on how to get involved in real estate investing, I say, read the book first or listen to the book on YouTube first,
uh-huh,
because it's going to give you a great foundation,
mhm.
of how to get started with this.
So is the entire book, on YouTube? Like
It
in
is.
audio form? Wow,
It
did
is.
you do the narration yourself?
I did.
Yeah, boy, that's exhausting, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, and you don't realize someone had told me that, oh, yeah, like a gallon of water and and I was like, oh, come on. I talk all day long, but it's not the same.
No, it is not the same. I did the narration for my first book, and the second book is not on in audio form yet, and I'm not sure if it ever will be. Yeah, because it's a lot longer than the first book. The first book was only 45,000 words, and we did the recording over 3 days' time. And I'm like, 3 days' time? I don't need no 3 days' time. Let's just, get it done and get it over with. Well, I could not believe we did 2 days in a row and then a day off, and then the 3rd day, I could not believe how exhausted I was on that one day off. I couldn't leave the house. I was just so tired, and I was
Yeah.
so happy when it was done.
And you get tongue tied. You're just like, really, I have to record that sentence again? What's wrong with me?
Well, I was actually in a professional recording studio, so thank God. Otherwise, I don't know. They had to kinda guide me the entire way, which was really fine, and I
Yeah.
was happy to pay for that, but not I don't think I wanna do it again, but it was good. But now so you've got that book out. Are you still thinking about that action-packed drama book, very exciting?
Yeah, I started writing the book, and I actually have what you could call a finished thing, but it's not really good. So that's, I think, a more of a when I'm more retired than I am now,
Mhm,
where I can
mhm,
really just take, go to a beach somewhere and just spend time sitting and listening to the
mhm,
surf and just writing and
mhm,
but I am writing another real estate book
mhm.
that's a little
Well,
bit easier.
they always say, "Write what you know."
Yeah, exactly. I
So
haven't done any murders, so it's a little harder to write the murder mystery.
No comment. I'm just kidding.
That anyone knows about anyway.
Yeah, right. I know where all the bodies are buried, but I'm not going to tell anybody. Okay, so now, what about you have another business called A Woman's Touch Home Renovation?
Yeah, and that just sort of comes naturally out
Hmm.
of doing my own renovations and having a good group of people so that when I
Hmm.
help somebody buy a property, a lot of times, they'll say, look, I just make it, we'll talk about. So this is a blessing and a curse, right? You walk through a property and you say, oh, this could be like this, and you could put this here. And, if this was a window, imagine what that would be like. And then they might say to me, okay, now do that.
Yeah, right.
And that's where the home renovation company comes in.
Mhm. Yeah, I have a really good friend who's a real estate agent, and she no longer lives in Colorado. But I remember her telling me, "Oh my goodness, what if you just sell this house?" And this is how much money you can get, and I can guarantee you this is what they're going to do to the house. And she started telling me all these things, and I'm like, wow, that sounds pretty cool. I would want to live in that house, but I can't pay for all those renovations. But it was actually really interesting to see and witness how someone in the real estate world so deeply involved in it thinks and sees so futuristically.
Yeah, it's interesting. Even before was an official real estate agent, I always sort of could walk into a space and think how it could be better.
Mhm, mhm. So now this is another interesting. I always am very curious to know why people start a podcast. So you not only started one, you have two.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Cheryl, why did you start your podcast?
Oh, it's a great story. There's a woman in town in Denver who had a talk radio show, and I found her one day when I was driving home from my office, and I'm just going through the radio, and I hear this voice, and I thought, "Oh my God, who is that? She's got a voice like, almost like ground glass. This doesn't sound like a voice for radio." And then as soon as I was thinking that, she said, "Oh, wait a minute, wait a minute. I got to take a moment to wipe the sarcasm off the screen." And I thought, who is this person? She was hilarious. So I followed her for years, listened to her radio show. And then one day I was driving home and was listening to her show. And she said, "Hey, why don't you, sign up for I'm starting this new program, or I'm starting this new business on the side. And, it's going to be a platform of all female podcasters. Why don't you sign up for our newsletter?" And I'm like, good idea. So I came home and I ran down to the girl cave, got on my computer and signed up for, the newsletter, got an automated response. "Hey, why don't you enter our contest? Because we are looking for the next best female podcaster." And I'm going, okay, I don't know what a podcast is. I don't know why I would ever want one. People have told me I should look into it. If I enter this contest, maybe I will be able to meet this person or in meet her in person. So that was my goal. I had no intention of even starting the podcast. And then I get another, it's like, okay, I'll enter this contest, get another, all the instructions that we had to do. And I thought, oh no, I don't do technology. I can't do this contest. There's no way I'm going to do it. But there was something deep inside. I want to meet this woman. So I went through the contest. It was 8 weeks of absolutely pure unadulterated hell and stress. And oh my gosh, it was just horrible. I knew I wasn't going to win, but I just didn't want to quit because that's just not who I am. So I went all the way through it. And at the end, I, of course, did not win, but I was invited to be on her platform. And that's basically how it started. And after about 9 months, it was like, I don't think I like doing this for someone else anymore. I think I want to go out on my own. And that's what I did. So yeah, I'm the reluctant ninja. I'm a reluctant author. I'm a reluctant podcaster. So I always have to be dragged into things. But once I get into it, and now I just love it. And I can't
Yeah,
stop.
it's wonderful.
Mhm.
Mine story is sort of similar. I had gone to long and winding road, but I went to the National Speakers Association has an annual meeting called Influence, and I went there, and one of the vendors was a was Pod. What's it called? It's Pod something, but anyway, it's basically a convention.
Is it Pod
Another
Match or it's not
Podmatch
Pod Match?
is a platform, but this was
Yeah.
Pod. Oh, I can see the thing, but anyway, it's an annual meeting. You
Mhm.
go there, a bunch of podcasters go. And I got to talking to the guy, and he was like, "Oh, this is going to be so fun. You should come. It's in Florida. It's in this time at level." And I said, "Okay." I mean, who knows why, but I thought it might be kind of fun to go to this thing. I don't know what it was exactly that he said to
Mhm.
me that made me think, yeah, this will be a great time. So
Mhm.
I went to the convention and started a podcast. And I had an idea like, so Get Your Fill is FILL is financial independence and long life, but it's kind of a take on FIRE, right?
Mhm.
Financial independence, retire early. Cause I said, well, you retire at 50, it's not really much of an accomplishment, or even later, at that point. So I said, I'll just live a long time instead,
Mhm. Mhm.
which of course Aunt Gert was the inspiration for that.
Mhm.
And yeah, it became like it sort of becomes addictive because this is like the secret that podcasters know is the people who you attract in your podcast and the experiences and all the conversations that you have. How would you ever have that? How would you ever meet those people? How would you ever get in that situation any other way? And so I became hooked on it. And then Women Creating Wealth is just
Mhm.
for female real estate investors. And that's more of just a teaching tool that I can,
Mhm.
use to share other women, share successful women with other women who are thinking that
Mhm.
they might like to do that.
Mhm.
So, and actually some men
Yep. Well, you're absolutely right. It is just a great way to meet people, not only all over the country, but all over the world.
yeah.
And I had no idea this is where this was going to go. I was just riding the wave at first. And then, when COVID hit, because I used to do the interviews here in my house, in the girl
Mhm.
cave, I'd have people. So they're all local Denverites, except for the lady who connected us. Nicole. Nicole was
Yeah.
actually coming through Denver, and I had
Oh,
already
cool.
been on her podcast before I had mine. And I said, if you're going to be in Denver, why don't you come over and we'll do a podcast recording, which we did. But then when COVID hit, it was like, okay, now what do I do? I've got to figure this out, which meant more technology, that steep learning curve. I'm not really good with technology, but, again, I couldn't stop doing it. And then it was like, wow, a whole new world opened up. I mean, I talked
Yeah.
to people in Berlin, I talked to people in Italy, I talked to people, got a lot of Canadians. It's just all over the place that I never would have met them in ever if it were not
Right.
for this.
Yeah. Isn't it fantastic?
Yeah, it really kind of opens your world and it rocks your world too.
Yeah.
So now that was your 50. That was a big, big turning point. So it sounds like you are planning your biggest year ever coming up. Is this true?
Well, I'm 60. I've turned
Oh, you
60
oh, you
last
have.
year.
Okay.
Yes, I turned 60 in 2023. And so
Okay.
that was, it's interesting because I wanted that to be a year of traveling and just like being crazy, having a great time the whole year. And actually, I did travel on my actual birthday and did a few trips, but the
Hmm.
majority of the year and the majority of probably the next year or so has been just spent getting this co-working space, getting the build out done and
Hmm.
getting it, full of people, and wanted to
Hmm.
have a positive cash flow and be, buzzing, be full of
Hmm.
people and energy and things like that. So once that's the case where I can walk away and leave it being managed by someone
Hmm.
else, then
Hmm.
I'm going to get back into my travel bug time.
Hmm.
And also I'll start then renovating another house because I don't want to do that either while I'm here because
Yeah,
it's tiring.
I could imagine. But you do have a bucket list, and it's
I
actually
do.
really extensive.
Yeah, it
But
is.
I just plucked out a few, and one of them was travel.
Yeah.
And you had, I mean, you're not talking about, going to the beach. You're talking like really big travel.
Yeah.
Where are some of the places you want to go?
Well, it's interesting because a lot of the places that I had on my original list were places where there were cool sort of conventions and seminars and things going on. So as an excuse to travel someplace,
Mhm.
I was going to go to these different things. So I've already done a lot of Europe. So
Mhm.
I mean, I love Europe. I love everything about it, but I'm ready to do some other places. I really want to go to, well, so my mom's family is Russian, so I'd love to go to the Soviet Union and a lot of that area. I have been to Croatia, which has that sort of,
Mhm.
feeling, but I want to do a lot more in the
Mhm.
Soviet Union, and I definitely want to go to South America. I want to, Peru has been on my list
Mhm.
for a long time. And then I know people in, Uruguay, I know people in Brazil, so I want to do those countries. It's the question is where do I not want to go, right? I've done
Mhm.
North Africa and haven't done anything in South Africa, so that's another
Mhm.
whole thing. And again, I know some people from Cameroon, so I would like to,
Mhm.
just any place where people can make a connection for me.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm all over it.
Mhm.
So
Okay. And of course, you want to write another book that's on your bucket list, which obviously you're doing that
yeah,
already. You've got that manuscript that you're working on. And here's
yeah,
my personal favorite, okay, is to become a competition worthy dancer.
yeah.
Okay, as a dancer myself, I found that was just, that was very intriguing. What style are you looking into studying?
Right. So here's the problem. Exactly. The thing about ballroom dancing. So I've done already, I enjoy doing East Coast swing and not the
Okay.
ballroom style East Coast swing, the sort of, whatever they call it, club style East Coast swing.
Mhm.
But once you start doing any kind of ballroom dancing, because I said, oh, I want to learn West Coast swing because it's so
Mhm,
cool and fun and pretty. And
mhm,
when people do it well, it just looks amazing.
mhm,
And I started doing that at a ballroom dance studio.
mhm.
And when you go to an event, when you go to practice in a social setting, it's every kind of ballroom dancing, right? They might do
Uh-huh.
one, maybe two West Coast swing dances all
Right.
night. And the rest of the night, you're doing all these other things. So I'm
Mhm,
literally learning every kind of dancing that you can think of. Well, maybe not, but and some of them I'm pretty okay at
mhm.
already.
Pretty okay. That's really on your way to being competitive.
Right?
That's good. That's a
Exactly.
start. You've gotta start somewhere.
Well, I think that the secret though, and I think as a dancer yourself, you'll probably agree, you really want to find a style that is fun for you and that you like the
Mhm,
music a lot
mhm,
because, right, you're going to have to, I mean, I had already done like salsa dancing and stuff like that, and East Coast is a good choice because it is usually music that I like. I
mhm,
love the tango.
mhm,
I think it's fab. It's just really, I love that. And it turns out that I'm pretty good at the hustle. I can do that really
mhm,
easily because I think it's very close to East Coast swing.
mhm.
But I'm not sure yet which one is going to be the winner um, for the one that I'm going to say, all right, this is the one that I'm willing to practice all the time. This is the
Mhm.
one where I'm willing to really put a lot of effort into. And the other half of that is finding a partner
That's
to
what
do
my
all that
next
with.
question was,
Yeah.
because you can't do this by yourself. And
Right.
then picking a partner and somebody that you can be, in alignment with, figuratively and literally,
Yeah.
and to be able who has the same amount of commitment as you do. I mean, I could see it would really be a lot of fun, but is as long as you have the correct partner. I do
Yeah.
have a friend. She's an author here in Colorado, and she just loves. She started ballroom probably when she was about 60, and she absolutely loves it. And the costumes, the dresses, and the shoes are just so stunning and beautiful. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm classically trained in ballet, and I
Oh, wow.
started at the age of like 19 or 20, and I still take professional level classes today,
Great.
probably only once a week because I still do martial arts 3 days a week. And
Yeah.
when I turned 58, I decided it was time to start engaging in more age appropriate activities. So I started
Which
pole
is,
dancing.
I
And I
love it.
actually did 2 competitions. And yeah, I'm not sure if there's a third in my future. I don't think so. I mean, I've done some performances, small studio performances, and those are really a lot of fun. But, at the age of how old was I? I was 63 when I did my first competition. And it's like, really, what are you doing to yourself? And to get up on stage in front of 200 people wearing a pole outfit with, 6 people in the audience judging you, boy, that was tough. But I won.
Awesome. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. See, who
Yeah.
says? Who says? Every time somebody says, "Oh, at your age," like, who says that I can't do that at my age? What is this age business anyway? It's way overrated.
So I think that that should be actually stricken from our vocabulary. It should be illegal to speak those words, but at your age.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I talk to a lot of people who've done some amazing things. I have a friend who's a real estate agent. I can call him a friend now because I've been on his podcast, and he's been on mine twice already. And he's 62, I think now, 62, maybe 63. And he started running again at the age of 60 because he saw where he was going. He was sedentary, he had gained a lot of weight, and he was doing the calculations, and he thought, if this is what I look like and feel like now, what's going to happen in another 15 years. So
Right.
he started running because he used to run when he was in his 30s, and he didn't really enjoy it. He started running again, and he fell in love with it.
Oh, wow,
And
interesting.
he's doing all of these races. He's doing this one crazy thing that was called the 29029, which you actually hike the equivalent of Mount Everest, but it's here in the United States. So, you like climb the same mountain 13 times. So it was just crazy, and listening to his story and talking about it, but he was so excited.
Yeah.
And now he's got, something else that he did that was really crazy. And now he's doing something called, oh my gosh, I can't remember what it is, but it's like this ultimate camping, hiking, running, moving constantly for 24 hours nonstop, and it's led by a rite of passage. That's the name of it, and it's in the woods of northern Georgia. And I mean, I've been to the woods in northern Georgia, and I'm like, oh my gosh. I says, well, take your mosquito, a repellent. And he says, yeah, he says, I have a list of things I have to take. And he just, he was reading, he had the list on it when we were doing the recording. And he says, do you know anything about snake repellent gators? And I said, no,
I
but
know
I
I
do
never wanna have to
know.
use
Right. I
it.
never want to be in a situation where I would need them. He says, well, I looked it up, but I'm not sure. And I said, Barry, you have got to come back on the show when you finish this because I want to hear about it. And he was looking forward to it. He's really excited. He can't wait.
Yeah, yeah. Because we figured out, right, challenging yourself, doing things that are a little bit difficult, things that test you, that's what keeps you alive. It's fun, it's exciting, it's invigorating, have if you don't have a goal. I actually just I can share this with you because this is like a week old, this newest goal, which is there's a building in the next town over. This an absolutely magnificent building from the early 19th century, and
Ooh.
I just found out that the city wants to tear it down. Yeah, because they've let it go for 20 years and now it's, rotting. And I mean, it's a beautiful brick building. So the
Right.
outside structure looks fantastic. I can't even see. They said that the roof, I guess the slates are falling off the roof
Mm.
and the roof is leaking. But I am planning to raise the money needed to preserve that building and then to turn it into a music and arts venue.
Oh,
Yeah.
congratulations. Oh my
Thank
goodness. You have to let me know. Maybe you can come back on the show and tell us about it once you have your grand opening or even before the grand opening.
It could very well be years because I think that I talked to another person who did a similar, not a little smaller scale renovation at a building in New Hampshire, and it took that 5 years to do that.
Mhm. Well, I'm going to be here in 5 years. I'll still be podcasting, so it's okay. You know how to find
Excellent.
me or where to
Well,
find me.
hopefully I can come on before then and tell you,
Okay.
give you some updates. But yeah, so I have to, it sounds like I'm going to need to raise about $30 million. So if
Wow.
anyone loves historic buildings and would love to give, $1 million or even $10.
Yeah. Anything at this point. So, how could
Yeah.
people get a hold of you to be able to make a donation?
Oh, great question. I don't have that set up yet.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, if they just reach out to me, the easiest way to get in touch with me at all is just to go on my website, chrismccarron.com, and then just reach out. And if you're like, Chris, I have money and it's burning a hole in my pocket and I really want to give it to you for this project. It's called the Smith Baker Center.
Hmm.
And Allen Ginsberg spoke there. Maya Angelou performed there. It's just a really beautiful historic
Wow.
building. And yeah, it's worth saving. It's definitely worth saving. So if you're
Okay.
interested in more info, I can send some pictures and
Well,
information,
once
and I'll set up a thing. Once the nonprofit is finished, I will set up a place where
okay.
people could donate a couple bucks or a couple
And
million
when
bucks
you
if they want to.
do, let me know and give me the link that people could follow because I can always add that later to the show notes and we can
All right,
promote it
great.
for you. Okay.
Thank you, Cheryl. I appreciate that.
Sure. And I just, you'll love this story because I have a friend here in Denver and we met online. This was before COVID and everything. So this was in the old days, BC. Um, and I can't remember how. I think I met her on LinkedIn. I saw her profile and her main picture. It
Banner
was
thing.
just this gorgeous space with all these windows. I mean, it was just amazing, this gorgeous space. And I connected with her and I said, is that your photography studio? And she says, yes. And so we're closely, in proximity. We're not far from each other, probably a 20-minute drive at most. And she invited me to come over and see it. Chris, it's an old church that was built in like, mid 1800s. And it was, they not torn down, but it was falling apart and it was just an absolute mess. But the outside stone church, perfectly beautiful, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And she bought it and was just going to gut it and renovate it and turn it into this beautiful space. And the first thing I did when I walked in there is I just wanted to take off my coat because it was, of course it was snowing that day, take off my coat and just start dancing in that space because it was so beautiful and the light, everything was so perfect. So she told me the entire story and and the history of the church and who had who lived there before. it was such a rich history that made me think, I don't think I'd want to sleep here. And her living quarters were in the basement. And her mom was a real estate agent. And the first time she showed it to her mom, came over and was visiting, and she says, I want you to see this. And she looked at it and she just said, oh, honey, oh, honey. And I said to my friend, I said, well, at least she didn't cry. And she says, no, not at the moment. She did that later. But she turned it
You
into
didn't
this,
see the that's all.
it's incredible. It's incredible.
Fantastic.
And
I
she
love
rents
that
it
because
out,
yeah,
to a lot of people. So it
yeah,
turned out to be a really good deal for her.
fantastic. Oh, that's
But
great.
the point is, don't listen to your mom when she says, "Oh, honey."
Well, because see, she did it right. She'd already bought it, and then
Mm,
she showed it to her mother.
right, and that's it, because she says, "You're not gonna buy it," and she said, "Well, I already did."
It's
And
done.
I think that's when her mom started to cry.
Well,
But if you don't take chances,
yeah.
what would what
No
would
one
Aunt
else
Gert
has our
say?
vision. No one else knows what we know. No one else has been through what we've been through. We just need to trust our own instincts. You do not have to get a consensus opinion of what everybody else thinks you should do because it's never gonna, no one's ever gonna agree, right?
Mhm.
People aren't gonna all be in consensus. So just do what you want and then pick up the pieces later. I mean, that's my
And
motto.
there are a lot of people that are gonna try and hold you back.
Yeah.
So, I love your motto. Do you have any other pearls of wisdom you can share with the listeners?
One thing I like to do is one thing that I did that really helped me to clarify what was important to me is I wrote my obituary, like how I would like to be remembered once I'm finally gone. And that process really helped me to think about the kinds of things that are important to me and how I could make sure that those things are a part of my life today.
Mhm. And what would Aunt Gert say to you right now?
Oh, she'd probably tell me that I was taking too long, that I was,
But you have
that,
at least
like
another 40 years left.
I know, but, she would probably tell me, like, "What's the holdup?" I think that's what she would say to me. "What's the holdup? You're overthinking things. Just do it. Do, 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 do." So,
Now, let me ask you this. Do you coach women? Because you says you're passionate about helping other women achieve, the second half of life. All I can say for myself is this has been so much better. If somebody had told me, in my 30s, don't worry, take a deep breath, it's going to be okay. You have no idea what's ahead, and it's really beautiful.
yeah.
So, how do you convince your clients or the people you coach of that?
And, you know how coaching is. They have to convince themselves, but they
Mhm.
wouldn't come to me if they didn't believe that it was possible.
Mm,
It's connecting to a passion, right? Do I
mhm,
need to get back into dancing? Do I need to go back to school? Do I need to figuring out where, as you speak to people, there's something that happens that all of a sudden the light comes on in their
mhm,
eyes and they start to get excited about like, really, I could do that. I could start my own business at age 60. Are you kidding me? Blah, blah, blah. And then they start talking faster and that you've figured out at least one road that you want to go down. And
mhm,
it's already inside them. It's
mhm,
just figuring out, clearing away some of the dust and
mhm,
finding that spark and then just blowing on it. And so that, as you do with a fire and just get it going
mhm,
again. And they take it from there, right? I mean,
mhm,
you can help somebody to see how something that they saw as a dream or a vague idea
mhm,
could actually become a business or a
mhm,
new way of living or
mhm,
whatever. And then they're off and running, right? They might they need a little bit of like keep me on the path and
mhm.
accountability, but there's no whips and chains involved. People are doing it themselves, It's
I like
just
that.
helping them to see that vision
I
that they
like
have.
that. Whips and chains. Okay, so tell the listeners where they can find you, how to get a hold of you. Of course, all of this information is going to be in the show notes, but I really like for the guests to be able to share that because it makes it a lot more personal when you can articulate where to find you, where to follow you, how to connect on all of that wonderful stuff, how to find your podcasts and your book.
Thanks, Cheryl. You know, I actually went looking for the book today. I always tell people, "Oh, it's on Amazon," and I went looking for it today, and I couldn't find it. So I'm in the process of putting it back onto the Kindle
Okay.
publisher's library. So I don't know why it isn't there, but I couldn't find it. So it will soon be back on Amazon, or you can go onto my website. The easiest thing so I have 17 websites. Not to make this too long. No, I don't actually know how many there are, but there are a lot. And I interviewed this guy one time and he said, my wife has me on a 12-step program for, domain names. And I thought, oh my God, if I had a wife, she would have me on one too.
Oh my God.
Because every time you turn around, I'm buying a new domain name. I really don't even know how many I have. But I've consolidated them onto chrismccarron.com.
Okay.
So if you just go there, you can find all the other ones. So you can say, book, and there's going to someday be a pop-up for the coaching that says, hey, I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to be a real estate investor. I want to rekindle my life after 50 and I want to do, but for now it's just chrismccarron.com, and you can poke around there and you'll find all kinds of cool stuff, including the book and some tips on coaching and also the podcast. But as you said, Get Your Fill podcast. If you just type that in, it'll probably come up. It's on all the
Mhm.
major podcast platforms. Women Creating Wealth, you might have to put my last name because there was another one called Women Creating Wealth
Mhm.
before
Mhm.
in like 2019. So that one might come up instead.
Mhm. I think that's hilarious about the URLs and the domain names. That is absolutely hilarious because I do have a really good friend who I don't know how many she's got, but she'll come up with it's like, oh, that's a good one. I'm going to buy that. She's actually the woman who runs it's a company called My Word Publishing. Yes, Polly, I'm giving you another plug. And so that's her. She's a consultant for. And she has this company that has editors, designers, marketers. I mean, there's everything in this book, and I mean in her company. And she came up with something the big barf, because she thinks that sometimes you just need to barf out your book. You could make an outline, and so she actually got a domain name, the big barf. So very interesting woman.
For sure.
Well, Chris, I am so excited. I finally got a chance to really talk to you.
Me too, Cheryl. It was great. It was everything I hoped for and more.
Aw, thank you. Same here. And just so the listeners know, we had some difficulties in the past trying to connect, and yeah, technical issues, windstorms, time changes, just about everything else except locusts. So,
That'll be next time.
yeah, right. Well, Chris, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Cheryl. Have a fantastic day.
You too. And everybody, thank you so much for listening. Boy, isn't this great information? What a story. And do share this episode with everyone you know, especially anyone who's a little bit uncomfortable about the big 5-0. You have no idea how fantastic the second half is going to be. And Chris can help you make it even better. Go to her website, check out her social media, connect with her. Obviously, she's a wonderful person, and she's really on her way to do even more great things, and you might want to go along with her. All righty, thanks a lot. And remember to be safe and take care of yourselves and be strong, be healthy, and that is the way of the FemiNinja.